As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be an artist.
I know I'd go from rags to riches if you would only say you care. And though my pocket may be empty, I'd be a millionaire.
April 15th, 2016. This is the last day that I worked what most people would consider a real job, a traditional corporate job that paid me a salary to be there Monday through Friday. That night, my girlfriend Katie, who is now my wife Katie, drove me to JFK Airport in New York. I got on an airplane, flew down to St. Petersburg, Florida to exhibit in the Mainsail Arts Festival, which is exactly where I'm going this weekend. By that time, I had been exhibiting at art festivals for about 9 years, slowly building up a body of work and improving my display and my sales skills through that time. Just basically getting better at doing outdoor art festivals. And since I basically started out with absolutely no money, I spent about $800 on my first setup and show. And that was pretty much all the money that I had at the time. I just reinvested everything that I made at any art show back into my display and creating new work. And that entire time I was also working full-time in addition to doing art shows. I started out doing a few local shows around where I lived in New York, started to branch out into New England, up through Maine, and then started to go down to Virginia to do some shows, just increasing my range and my markets a little bit more each and every year. Until I got to the point where I was working my job Monday through Friday, then Friday night going to the airport, getting on an airplane, flying to an art show in another state, whether it was Florida or Chicago or somewhere else, exhibiting in the art festival Saturday and Sunday, and then late Sunday night going to the airport, getting on an airplane, flying all the way back to New York so that I could be at work on time Monday morning. It was absolutely exhausting, but what I was doing was testing different markets and making sure that exhibiting in art festivals full-time was something that I could actually do and make a living at. And I wanted to build my art business to the point where working a regular job was actually hindering me from making a substantial amount of more money exhibiting in art festivals. And I got probably close to that. I probably left my job a good 6 months too soon, but it got to the point where I could not do both at the same time. So I decided to leave my full-time job and that security of a guaranteed weekly paycheck to go out and do these crazy outdoor art festivals across the country. So that weekend when Katie dropped me off on April 15th, 2016, and I flew down to exhibit here at the Mainsail Art Festival, was the beginning of about a month and a half of straight on-the-road art shows across the country for me. And it was a real test to see, could I do art festivals full-time and support myself that way? That was a terrifying time in life for me. It was not a decision that I took lightly to leave the security of a full-time job like that to be an artist, but I also knew that that wasn't the life for me. As far back as I can remember, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit and attitude. Even when I was a little kid, my parents always say that I used to tell them I was never going to work a job where I had to work for someone else or something when I got older, which is, I don't know where I got that mentality from, because both of my parents worked very traditional jobs my entire life. So where I got that idea from, I have no idea. But they did do something really great for me, is that they never told me that that was a ridiculous idea or a ridiculous thought, that there's no way I could ever just work for myself forever. I played in DIY punk and hardcore bands where we recorded our own records, put them out by ourselves, printed our own shirts, booked our own tours, and doing that had a huge impact on my life and really taught me a lot about running my own business. It's kind of ironic to feel like being in a DIY punk rock band taught me how to run a business, but the truth is it really kind of did. And I'm definitely not the only one. So many of my friends that were in punk rock and hardcore bands have gone on to own very successful small businesses. So I really think there's a strong correlation between punk rock and small business ownership. Learning how to do everything for yourself like that is really great training for running your own small business. Okay, so I'm here with my friend and fellow artist, Patrick Slagle. Patrick shared a story with me, unknowing to him, what my video was about this week, about how he used to be an attorney and then transitioned into being a full-time artist. So when you were an attorney and then how did you transition to being an artist? Did you just make a jump one day and be like, that's it, no more attorney, I'm going to go paint? Or how did that work?
I met a guy, bought a used miter saw from him, and he was an artist, and he was telling me about, he makes money doing it, travels, and it sounded really appealing. So I've always painted, and I started considering like selling my paintings. I did a few shows and started basically to make enough money to transition over full time. And it's so much more rewarding doing this than it is sitting in an office.
Yeah, I mean, that's often what I felt and what I said about, transitioning into being an artist. Even though I previously worked in photography and in the arts, it's more fulfilling emotionally to be an artist, even though I do feel, and I don't know, probably not as an attorney, but I probably spend more time in a week working now that I'm an artist than I did when I was in the corporate world. But it's so much more fulfilling and enjoyable.
It's the type of work I like too. I mean, yes, I'm more hands-on, I found out, than cerebral. So.
Yeah, and it's not always a monetary thing. It's, the important thing and the measure of success in life, I often feel, is not monetary. It's enjoyment of your life and the ability to do what you want when you want to do it, and not saying that people who work real jobs are doing anything wrong or anything bad, but it wasn't a life for me, and apparently not for you either.
Definitely Patrick. Not for me, man.
Awesome.
I only lasted like a year.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing the story with us.
Problem,
I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Right on.
So off to a really great start this morning on the way to the show. I got into a hit-and-run accident. A bright orange Jeep Wrangler ran into the back of me in Palmetto, Florida, so be on the lookout for one of those. And now I can't get in the back of my van. So that's going to be really cool for unloading, or for loading up, I guess.
How lucky can one guy be? I kissed her and she kissed me. Like the fella once said, ain't that a kick in the head?
So that whole situation kind of has me a little shook this morning, of course, but I seem to be fine mentally and physically, although I might just be pushing down those feelings, being a highly sensitive person and not allowing myself to get too upset or feel too bad right now so that I could just get through the day and the show. I mean, I'm mostly just worried about being able to fit my entire display back in the van. So I'm going to try just to load everything in the side door this evening when I pack out. I don't have another show for a month, but that show is up in New York, so I hope that I can get my van fixed quickly in time to make it to that show, because last year that show was my best show of the year, so I definitely don't want to miss that show. One of the great things about being a part of the art show community is that there's a really strong sense of community. I told a couple other artists what had happened this morning when I was walking in, and the love and support I felt from them. I had offers of people who were just offering to help me pack up tonight if I needed anything. And even though I think I'm fine and I don't really need anything, I really appreciate that outpouring of community support from people, which is something that you really don't see in a lot of places these days. So I'm very thankful and feel very fortunate to be part of such a supportive community, which is part of the reason I make these videos. I don't really get paid for making these stupid YouTube videos, but I do it as a service to help build community within the art festival world. And again, that's just my punk rock ethos showing its head again. It takes a special kind of person to make a living doing this ridiculous thing that we as artists do. Unfortunately, this accident turned out to be just the beginning of a string of problems that I would encounter over the next couple of months. Subscribe to my channel to see what troubles lay ahead for me.